this is what I want to talk to you guys about. So I had an epiphany, and the epiphany to me was the fact that as I was talking to my father, one of the things what kept Moses from getting to the promised land, and how modern day scholars and biblical theologists and theologians will tell you that Moses was leading the people out of their slavery. It was mental slavery, physical slavery, and God had chosen him and his brother Aaron because Moses stuttered so bad that Aaron was his go-to guy. See, God would speak to Moses, Moses spoke to Aaron, Aaron spoke to the people. In saying that, sometimes God will speak through someone else in order to get your attention. He will use you in order to use someone else so they may be more useful in the kingdom. Because if it had not been for Moses, Aaron would not have spoken. Aaron could not free the people. Aaron had no ability to free the people. But Moses had the ability to allow the slaves to become free. When we look at it in its reference, Moses used that ability to the best. But here's where it gets interesting, and I want you to stay with me just for a little bit. When Moses had freed the people and they was free and they was on their way, something happened that most of us do. We'll often go back to the ways we were taught, not because we want to, and not because we know that was wrong. They say old folks just call us backsliders. The thing about being a backslider is that you will basically habitate to what feels most comfortable to you. So the slaves began to worship the idols and to do adultery and do all things that was unclean and was seen unnecessary, really to serve a greater God, a greater purpose, an understanding that Moses had instructed unto them. He said, "No other God shall you serve, but this God." But they were so used to being slaves and conformed to what they had to think that they just knew that this is what they were supposed to do even when they was free. Remember, you can free the body, but if you don't free the mind, you'll still be held in captivity. You can free the body, but if you don't free the mind, you will still be held in captivity. So when they begin to worship idols, Moses, probably standing on the mountain looking over them, was probably ready to pull his hair out. He couldn't understand, why are you worshiping idols? Didn't I just free you from your captives? Didn't I just free you from all of the lifelong sin and hatred and misunderstanding? And now I'm bringing you to the promised land where God has set for you. He has made it so that you shall be free. But instead, you don't get it. I'm so frustrated, Moses must have thought. Why are they doing this to me? Remember, Moses took it personal. One thing you got to know, that God didn't give it to Moses to take personal because it was God's situation. Moses was acting as an interpreter, he was the interlude, you could say, to what God had already planned to happen. So Moses, being who he is and what he was, went to the only place he could, and that is to the higher calling, and says, "God, I gotta sit down with you. We need pull up a chair. Pull up a chair and we need to talk." And when he looked at God, I'm sure he told God, "Here's the problem. Real simple. Yo, people, I freed him. Did what you told me to do. My little brother, he hooked him up, he gave him he interpreted speech. Because remember, he interpreted what God had told Moses to the people, because they couldn't understand. They couldn't understand Moses. Moses spoke in a different tongue. Let's just say that. So God just listened to him like a psychiatrist would, cross his legs, pull up a chair, put on a bench and say, "Okay, speak your piece, Mo." He said, "Well, look, Mo." He said, "Now you told me about what they've done and how they were so how they were so humble, how they were so easy to pass it to come on, they said, we got this, we doing this. But you said, they started to worship their old ways again. That was idol worship and adultery and doing all kind of barbaric things. And I don't understand that." God looked at Moses. He said, "Moses, don't go back to those people and be angry." But in human nature, we tend to be angry and we don't get over it. So Moses was still mad because he came to God for a solution, and all God told him was basically like Jesus said in the boat, "Peace be still." That's all. Basically, God was saying to Moses, Moses, peace be still. It's going to work out. I got a plan. You may not see it, but I already know it. So I just need you to do what I asked you to do. Lead my people to the promised land. I don't need you to go and do anything but what I asked you to do. Now Moses listening, he's like, all right, all right. He said, so him and God's on the one. He said, G, I'm gonna tell you now, that's hard. God looked at him and said, Mo, for real? I got you this far. You talking about them and you don't even trust me. He said, so I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. I want you to go to the rock. Now, instead of Moses going to the rock, Moses goes to the people. And Moses lets out, oh man, Moses cranks it up. Moses turns it up 110 degrees on the furnace scale. And he says, y'all crazy, man. Y'all doing all that. Moses went into those people and he kept them out of the promised land because he disobeyed God's order. God said, I didn't want you to. He said, see, sometimes God will let you sit in your own murky clay in order to know that once the clay hardens around your feet, you're going to leave footprints in order to see where you came from, so you won't go back. But now here's where it gets interesting. Now, as I said, this was the epiphany. Most people will tell you when they say that Moses spoke to the rock, he's speaking of an inanimate object, a stone. God was saying, speaking into the stone, the rock, an inanimate object that has no feelings, cannot move. But remember, everything that God put forth on earth comes from God. So actually everything has some type of intelligence embedded within. But here's what I'm telling you. When God said speak to the rock, he was telling him, go to my helper that I sent down before you. Go to Jesus, go to Yahweh. Go to him. He is the rock that I'm building up on. He's the rock. See, Moses was so mad that he just thought, why am I talking to this dumb rock? I don't need a rock. I got the people. I don't need a rock. But if you had listened without your anger, you would have understood, and Moses would have understood, that the rock was the one that God sent before thee. The one who he had sent in order to prepare the way. Because if he had spoken to the rock, they would have found the promised land. Right? They wandered. Remember, they wandered in the desert because they didn't speak to the rock. Now, remember what I said. God talked to Moses. Moses talked to Aaron, and Aaron was talking to the people. That was the prelude right there. Moses, Aaron, the people. When Moses got mad, he said, look, you know what? You're mad. I understand that, bro. You're upset. I understand that. So I need to say, go to the rock. Instead, he went straight to the people. Remember, Moses skipped over Aaron. So if Moses had an ability to speak clearly and Jesus needed Aaron to translate, then when he went to the people, come on now, stay with me, they couldn't understand what Moses was saying. So to them, it threw them off of their map. God had laid it out, but now Moses had messed it up because he went directly to the people. So they're standing there bewildered like, what are you talking about? Well, we got to follow you because we've always followed you since we got out of captivity. And then the next thing happened was that when they wandered, they get to the promised land, Moses looked at God, what happened? He said, didn't I tell you to speak to the rock? I didn't have to. I spoke to the people, but you didn't listen. Because had you spoke to the rock that I sent before thee, come on now, when even John said he had come before him, if you had spoke to the rock would have clarified, amen, the rock would have clarified what God wanted. See, God had told the rock that there was a better way. And if Moses had spoken to the rock would have said, Moses, God don't want you to go around and round in circles. He wants you to go straight down, take a left through Bynum, and come on down past Solid City. You'll find Apex. Amen. But he didn't. But he didn't speak to the rock. Instead, he just went straight to the people. Now, see, this is the interesting part about it, because the rock would have said, all you gotta do is take a couple of super highways, whether you're on I-40, I-85, I-95, it doesn't matter. But he would have given him a direct path to where he was going. The rock was God's clarification. God has spoken to the rock to speak to Moses, so Moses could speak to Aaron, and Aaron could speak to the people. Simple as that. The rock was in place. The rock today is still in place. When you find yourself trying to get out of captivity like most of us are, I want you to do one thing. Don't do what Moses did and get upset, because you may just not be understanding what God is saying to you. You may feel like God is speaking and I don't know what to do, and I'm getting so frustrated, because I'm in that position now, and I'll tell you all about that later, but I'm in that position now, and I'm getting frustrated. I don't know what to do. Things are not going the way they're supposed to, and you begin to ask God why. And when you go to God, he gives you an answer, and you're like, I don't even understand, so you begin to take it out on those around you, and that's not what God wanted. What God wanted was you to do is say, I spoke to you. Now I want the rock, the one you set before me, to speak to me to clear up this thing. Ask God for clarification of the issues. That's all Moses had to do. But remember, when he disobeyed God, he couldn't find the kingdom. He couldn't find the promised land. Do you know why he couldn't find the promised land? Because he didn't understand where it was. They wandered, and they was lost, but they didn't disobey God. So eventually, God gave them what he promised. Just remember, when he says go to the rock and not the people, listen. Don't become Moses. Because all the greatness he did, at the end, he still disobeyed God's will. So that's just a little lesson today. Remember, there is a set passage that God's going to send you through. There's going to be bumps, there's going to be hills, there's going to be rough spots, but also there's going to be a clear sailing. And during those rough moments, when you don't understand and you've already gone to God, once again, go to the rock. And don't think that rock is an inanimate object, because it's not. Remember, the rock that he was speaking to was the one he had set before Moses. Moses left out the rock. Don't you leave out the rock. Today, you're going to be going through some things, I'm sure. And I know some of them things you don't understand, whether it's work, family, or life. And you say, God, I've come to you many times and you've given me many answers, but I still don't know what to do. Today, go to the rock instead of the people.